G'day guys, welcome back to Roadside presented by Zwift. We're back for a huge episode here, a lots to unpack, Tommy. We've had opening weekend kickoff, so we've got Omloop, we've got Kerner to go through on the men's and women's side. We've got a big roadside news as well today with the 2026 Tour de France Grand Depart announced and the team's time trial is back. We've got a pro triathlete, Tommy, claiming that sex is to blame for her positive doping test. That's an interesting one. Ewan got some goss on him that's come back to us as well. And another huge episode previewing Strade Bianche at the end for the men's and women's too. Oof, it feels good to be back, Tommy.
Yeah, it certainly does, mate. It feels like quite a while since we've done a show. And at the moment, the season, it's rolling on and we're getting stuck into the action and sort of some of the news stories are just becoming a little bit more important, aren't they?
Yes, the bigger news is rolling through. The articles you actually want to click on rather than just, when there's nothing going on, you just click on the dregs. But it's all coming through. Tommy, mate, you're just coming off a couple of days, the Bucks parties, mate, but you're looking very fresh for someone who's been on the Terps for hours.
Like a heritage-listed house, mate. I've been done up on front and inside. Yeah, it's not looking too pretty, mate. But no, look, it's been a big weekend. Had a good friend's Bucks over the weekend. Quick little bit of golf on the Bucks, which was always good fun. Had a
few
win.
Double bogeys?
Yeah, there was a few, but I tell you what, we had a win. I was playing with my mate, and we had a win. We were playing some Ambrose. We had a win on the golf course, and I tell you what, we had a win off the golf course as well, mate. A little bit of fun. Mate, you've been training, pretty intensely for 3 peaks. It's this week. When was the last time you did a day over 2,000 metres of climbing on your bike?
Definitely on the gravel bike last year, I believe.
Last year, not this year.
No, I've ridden 380 kilometres this year, and I've got 235 kilometre 3 peaks coming up on the sad day. So
how much climbing is peaks again?
4,500. There's a few climbs, but I went out and did 60 Ks, couple of hill repeats on the new Canyon Ultimate, Tommy.
So you've got a wedding the night before peaks.
I do.
And you're going to roll into peaks after
6
hopefully having had a big night.
Yeah. Don't be behind me when we're descending Falls Creek, first 29k descent. That's how it starts. I'm just going to be all over the road. But I'll freshen up, mate. Little couple of pale ales the night before. And
You'll be dive bombing in those corners, just trying to move up inside.
Well, with the Magene XR Ultra Dark wheels, mate, I will have the confidence.
How are they? How's the bike?
New bike. We'll talk about the new bike a little bit later with the new wheels and the Pirelli tyres. They're very, very good. You got to follow us on socials, YouTube, click subscribe, comment as well, and of course on the podcast players. Hit the bell, hit the subscribe so you get it straight in your feed on Apple, Spotify, all the rest. Tommy, it's time to start talking about opening weekend and the huge lot of racing that we had right after this. So, Tommy, Omloop Het Nieuwsblad was the first race for opening weekend. It was a big build-up. You just saw a lot of fanfare in the comments on social media, all the news articles, the riders getting ready. You get the team shots as well of them on the cobbles, preparing for opening weekend. And in the end, on the men's and the women's, we had 2 winners. We had from X Soren Vorenskjold, the big 190 centimetre.
Great pronunciation.
Thank you, the great man.
That one, that's good.
And Lotte Klaas from B&B Hotels with a big upset in the women's. And also to touch on Kerner, we'll focus on Omloop first, but Kerner, Philipsen, there was an Alpecin Masterclass the second day ahead of Mr. Olive Coy. But Omloop, Tommy, maybe it missed the mark this year.
Yeah, it certainly felt that way, to be honest, mate. It was, Omloop is sort of built up as it's the, the opening weekend, and on the calendar at the moment, it's the 4th World Tour race. So you got Cadell's Tour Down Under, UAE, and Omloop is just this opening hit out. You think you're going to see some really open and exciting racing, and we saw the exact opposite, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We didn't see a lot of action. We'll start with the women's here because it was a bizarre race, and to be honest, it wasn't a great advertisement for the women's classics to begin. So if it was your first classic you've watched in the women's side, this is not how it usually goes. But basically, the peloton completely misread the break, and they didn't just misread the break. There was a break around 5 or 6 riders that got up the road, and SD Works and FDJ they had a standoff. They thought, you know what? sorry, we're not chasing for Vollering, FDJ. And then SD Works said, we got Webus, we're not chasing either, because they were sort of just in a standoff as to who would chase. And the result of that was 60 kilometres to go. The breakaway had 13 minutes.
13. That's not unusual to see that sort of gap.
But at 60 Ks to go, that's quite high.
That's unusual to see it with a 60K to go. It should be around that sort of 2-minute mark at most.
Yeah, well, yeah, you keep it in track. And when you've got FDJ, and I think the boys at Lanterne Rouge, they talked about this as well. And if you have FDJ and you've got Vollering in your team, she's a lock. She's a lock for a podium. Yes. She's a lock for a podium, if not the favourite to win. Surely you just chase. Because if you make the race hard enough, if you're worried about Webus being there with Vollering and out sprinting her at the end...
Is what it is, you accept that.
If you ride the race hard enough and it becomes Vollering versus Webus for the final 2 climbs up the Bosberg or the Molenberg or whichever it was, or the Muir, Vollering will drop Webus. So don't you just back your rider in and then you win versus not chasing?
I don't like not giving your leader a chance to win.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And we saw that as well in the men's as well, where there was a little bit of negative riding, or teams that should have been the aggressors were actually caught out by teams who were trying to, defensive riding, so to speak, who had teams who had sprinters. They were riding and actually holding position on really hard technical points of the race. And for the women, I didn't get it. I was sort of following along. It was
embarrassing. That's what it was. And it's not the riders. We're not talking about the riders, the women. It's the directors. The directors are idiots. If they think they're idiots. They let this random... No disrespect to the riders in the breakaway. They were, they're not the greatest riders in the world. So if the pros and the big stars of the women's peloton decide to turn it on, start chasing... their gap gets destroyed, because there was a moment in the race at that 60-kilometre mark where there was 13 minutes. Ellen van Dijk for Lidl Trek, she stepped on the gas and started chasing. And in about, I would say, 10 kilometres, she sliced 6 minutes off the gap. Yep, so that just gives you... When they turn it on, the breakaway riders, they weren't the super class, right? But the directors, how could they do that? How could they let the gap go out so much and then just play this standoff game? And Webus complained at the end of the stage. She said, at the very end, they interviewed her after the stage finished. She goes, we don't have the favourite, so we don't chase. And Vollering said a similar line. And it's like, hello, I mean, Webus and Vollering, you're the top 2 favourites. Maybe Puck Pedersen is the other, but just embarrassing. So in the end, it came down to 2 of the breakaway riders, Tommy. It was Aurela Nerlo, who rides for Windspace Orange Seal.
What a name. What a team name that is.
What's Orange Seal? Is that what you clean your bins with? I think that's what you clean the inside of your bins with. But Windspace out there as well. And Lotte Klaas as well, who looked a little bit stronger throughout the climbs. And in the end, Klaas led out with about a kilometre to go, Tom. She led out with a kilometre to go. And I reckon Nerlo was 1 bike length behind her the entire time. She just could not get out of the wheel. And it was sit down, sprint, sit down, sprint. Oh, she just held on. So Lotte Klaas from RKR B&B Hotels got the win and 400 UCI points for her team.
Yeah, how's that? 400 UCI points. That's massive, isn't it? To win a World Tour race like that, or at least a massive one-day race. Cycling's a funny sport, don't get me wrong, and we see events like this happen, and it gives the peloton a pretty big shake-up, and like you said, it gives the directors a big boot up the arse as well. One thing I did love about this outcome was the whole Arcadia B&B hotels. The rest of the girls, they rolled in, they saw Klaas on the podium, and there was genuine emotion, heartfelt emotion. They were a team that were going to put a rider in the break, roll the dice, hopefully someone has a day.
Yep.
And someone had a day.
Yep.
Your chips fall, and
And that's the beauty of going in the break. Sometimes, even if your FTP's 300, Vollering's 500, there is a chance that they make a mistake, and they did. The DSs made a mistake, a huge mistake of FDJ and SD Works, but they got the Chockies, RKA B&B Hotels, and a really cool win, and just a win for the underdogs, which is very, very nice. And also a win for Windspace, because that bike, that's got to be the first time that bike has been on a podium for a World Tour race.
Yeah, they look okay. Hey, just a little Google here. Shout out Windspace if you want to jump on board, slide into our DMs. And Orange Seal, a little bit of sealant. Never heard of them before, but yeah, anyway.
Okay. And on to the men's. The men's, very interesting one, of course, by Soren Varenskjold, the great big 190 centimetre Norwegian for Uno X Mobility.
You love big units. This bloke must be your messiah.
He is. I do like him. Like the big lad, and all the big Nordic riders are huge. But this was the biggest group sprint in Omloop history for the men's race.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit of a headwind on the way in. Stefan Kung, he gave it a nudge on to the run in. He said after the finish line, the race was about 1 kilometre too long.
Yeah.
So the big Swiss rider, he still is looking for that sort of elusive classics win, isn't he?
Oh, he was so close. A good ride. He looked out of shape at the start of the year, but Kung, with that late attack, he got caught with 1 kilometre to go. Really good ride by him. The top 10 we had, so the top 5, just to remind everyone, Warren Skold got the victory ahead of my man, Paul Magnier, the Frenchman on Pseudo Quick Step. Remember my classics? Well, hang on a second. 2 episodes back, my classics rider to watch is this man. He only just beat him in a photo. Philipsen as well, and then Brent Van Moor, the breakaway specialist from Lotto, and Sam Watson. Ineos Grenadiers would be happy with him.
Yeah, they'd be very pleased.
Their young
very
classics
pleased
Brit.
with that.
That was the top 5 in a huge group sprint, and I think the takeaways from Omloop in the men's was that, one, Alpecin de Koenig, they look very, very strong as a unit. And we talked about Gianni Vermeersch, one of the most hated men in the peloton. Despite him being hated, he's a absolute beast, and he's one of the best classics domestiques in the pro peloton today.
Yeah, he sort of reminds me of Nathan van Hooydonk. He has that ability to just, Van Hooydonk was this big Dutch rider for Jumbo-Visma, and he was the man who just had this ability to line it out, put it into the gutter, and make it really hard at these pinch points if you had a puncture or piece things back together if need be.
Yep.
He's just that massive engine that if you are going to go deep into these classics and you are a team who wants to be there with the numbers, or you need to be there with the numbers, like they would with Philipsen to ride something back, then Vermeersch is just an essential item in a list that you need.
He's very, very, very good. And Jasper was on the front foot, attacking on the Muur and showing his form. And there was an article that was posted during the week that Philipsen did. I think it might have been one of the Dutch news outlets. And he said that his sprint he hasn't been working on it this year. Yep. And they were asking me about UAE, how he'd lost some sprints, didn't win any. And he said, I haven't been working on my sprints. I've been training my classics form, my classic shape. And you saw it today, and you saw it in Kerner. He was really, really strong, and that's one, I think, to watch.
So the mail I've got on Philipsen, just quickly, is that he's all in for not the classics, he's all in for the monuments. He's really keen to go back to Milan-San Remo. He wants to go try and win Roubaix, if he can. He was second there.
Yep.
I've heard that he raced opening weekend. He's off to altitude now, big block of altitude, and then back for Milan-San Remo. So I've heard that, Philipsen. And like you said, mate, he looked really good. He was not caught out. He was riding, and he was really great with his positioning, dragging himself over climbs. It looks really hard to look past him for, say, like a monument like Roubaix.
Yeah, I'm impressed. And I'm interested to see what will happen when they bring Van der Poel into this team, because Philipsen's really shown himself here. Like, hang on, I'm not going to be second fiddle. We're not all working for Van der Poel at Roubaix. I want equal leadership, and that's when things get interesting. So I'm impressed with them. I have to say, no UAE, Jumbo, or Red Bull in the top 10 of the men's Omloop was something I didn't have on my bingo card, and I think that's something to look out for in the future classics. They were a bit better on Kerner Jumbo. Have I missed someone out?
No. What about Unibet? The Rockets.
Yes.
How about this?
Lucas Kabis.
Yes.
He, the Slovenian, is he?
Yeah, Slovenian national champion. Is he in the jersey?
He also finished in the top 10 for Kerner, and he had a really good French.
In Kerner.
Fourth in Kerner, and have a look at his stats. Have a look at this man from the Unibet.
He wasn't fourth in Kerner, but he was up there.
What do they call their team?
Yeah, Unibet Team-Up.
Yeah,
Rockets.
Have a look at his start of the year. He's one to watch, and he's not going to be on that team for very long, because I'm sure Quick-Step will snaffle him up. But one last thing for Omloop, the men's race, Tommy, was that Wout van Aert looked average, and he also looked scared. And he also looked scared in Batoise, was that how you say it? The French stage race earlier in the year. He actually stuffed a sprint up on stage.
He was in Tour de Provence, was he?
Was it Provence? No, Algarve. So
yeah, he was
Algarve.
over in the south of Portugal racing.
It was one of the
Algarve.
stages. He's a lock to win the stage. He just needed to be in the front. He gave up so many wheels when it was getting really dicey, and he didn't end up sprinting in the top 5. And again, throughout the race at Omloop, he was nowhere to be seen in the top 15 wheels. He was always between like 20th and 60th, missing splits. He just didn't look good, and he looked scared. So this is, a normal Wout van Aert wins this race.
Well, he's got a contract for life at Visma. So remember that they announced over the season that they said, look, they have penned and signed an open contract with Wout that he can be there until he doesn't want to be there. Do you reckon that's detrimental? Contracts
mean nothing to me. You can break them and shake them however you like, and contracts in sport mean nothing.
Yeah, we see it in footy all the time. It wasn't just opening weekend. Little quick whip around in Spain. The Gran Camino that started actually in Portugal went up the coast, finished at Santiago de Compostela. Derek G from Israel Premier Tech, he found the top step of the podium. Magnus Cort, he keeps the good times rolling for Uno X. He won 2 stages and the final stage. He looks really good for a rider coming into the classics. There were 2 French one-day races as well. The last Dromo Classic was won by Juan Ayuso, UAE team Emirates. Their season just rolls on.
50k solo, that guy.
Impressive. The young Spaniard, he is looking bloody sharp.
He better, because he's talking shit all year because he thinks he's better than Pogacar, thinks he's better than Almeida. My man, this is what he's got to do. He's got to go on those big raids and improve, talk the talk and walk the walk. It's
an interesting one. Like, we're going to have to dive into it another time, but UAE, they've started the season so well. They've won almost every World Tour race until opening weekend. Well, at least UAE and TDU. And they've won down in Algarve. They were on the podium with Pavel Sivakov in Andalusia.
Yep.
All these riders have started the season so well because they're fighting for spots in the hierarchy. It is going to be...
team.
Yeah, precisely. It is going to be so interesting at UAE to see who actually has the legs when they hit these races like Romandy, Catalunya, the Giro. And there's a hierarchy established. Who actually gets the opportunity, and if they've got any bloody legs because they've been racing each other.
And who does Pogacar like too? He's not going to want Ayuso from the comments he's made. He's going to want someone that's going to be looking at all in for him, and of course in form. So that perfect balance. We've got a big FE Sports roadside news coming up as well. But before we do dive into that, we've got the Zwift Big Spin, Tommy. Now, Zwift is really good at providing little incentives all the time to get on there and ride the group rides or chase an achievement or unlocks, right? And they provide different kits, different bikes and things you can work towards with your XP. But the Big Spin is a promotion running from March to April with all these different events where you can unlock some very cool things. This is the biggest period of unlocks on Zwift all year round, and it has the coolest thing you can get by far, only available by chance to unlock. You have to spin the wheel in the game, and it is the BMX Bandit bike. Have a look at this, Tommy. Let me just show you this bike.
Yeah, give us a squeeze.
BMX Bandit bike on Zwift. This is the best unlock you will ever get on the game. I'm just opening it up.
While you're looking that up,
I'll tell you. Have a look
you.
at this. Absolutely a weapon when it loads. Look at some of these kits. You've got the BMX Bandit bike. How good is that? It's like a BMX. You've got the Big Spin headphones. You've got the old school helmet.
Yeah,
and
like the old school helmet.
You've got the groovy TT wheel. So there's some really cool unlocks to go through on the Big Spin on Zwift. So if you are riding this month between March and April, make sure you do the Big Spin and hopefully unlock it.
That could be me. I've actually got to hit up the team at Zwift because I'm actually borrowing a trainer off a friend. And I'm borrowing a trainer off a friend, so I've got to get myself set up in Zwift properly instead of just skiving around using my mates. So
we'll get you in
that's going to be me.
We'll get you in the camp. So, Tommy, the FE Sports roadside news. We've got a huge section of news to unpack. Mymagene XR Ultra Dark 50mm, 58mm rears were debuted on the weekend. Very, very impressed. They're 1390 grams. They're under $2,000 Australian. They are the real deal. They're 28mm Pirelli, blows up to a 30mm on the rim. You had a look at it outside.
I couldn't believe how wide. It looks comfortable.
Spending more than $2,000 on any cycling part, I think that day is done. You know, I think the day is done spending that much. You don't have to. You can get the same product as good as the top level. You just don't have to spend as much. You're paying for the brands. This is a really good set of wheels, the Magene Ultra Darks, and I'm looking forward to peaks on
I've
them.
heard some good things. I've heard they're durable, mate. I don't know if you'll be out there testing the durability of them, but
gliding through the wheels. Just gliding through the wheels. Now we've got a big roadside news presented by FE Sport to go through the Tour de France, mate. We've got some news on that end.
The Tour just always finds its way into the cycle, doesn't it? It's
a big show.
It's there all the time, and they're back again. They've announced the 2026 Tour de France is going to start in Barcelona. They're going to have a team time trial for the first stage, and then 2 more stages. The second will finish back in the capital of Catalonia, Barcelona. They'll start down the coast in Tarragona. I actually don't know where the third is going to go. That might just bugger off.
They haven't released it yet.
Okay, so I haven't missed that. Good. I've been a little bit busy the last couple of days, but this is exciting. I love the team time trial. We saw it for the opening stage of the Tour of Valencia a month ago, and I loved it. And this one's a little bit different, Jet, with the GC positions. Traditionally, it's always been the first 4 riders across the line of the team. That's the time.
Yeah.
But this is different.
Oh, it is too, yeah. So this one, it relies on the GC rider's time. Is that right?
The individual rider. So they're going to take individual riders' times across the line here. So the course itself, it starts just on the north side of the city, and then it's kind of cut down. And like what we see in Volta Catalunya, that they finish on the circuit in Montjuic, the castle that overlooks Barcelona, they're going to finish at the top of there with this time trial. Now,
so it finishes on a climb.
Yeah, little punchy climb. I would say 2K climb, you would have seen it if you've watched the last stage of Catalunya. They use this circuit all the time. The riders will know it well. All the teams will know it really well. And it's a wonderful stage. I really like the parkour that they're going to use in this. I think it's going to be a really good spectacle.
And just when you look at the parkour of this TTT, the way you'd seem to play it is you're almost in the team's time trial. The teams are going to be protecting their GC rider as much as possible, and then let them loose up that final climb and see if they can improve their team's time against their competitors. And we might get some really cool shots of a split screen of Pogacar going all in after UAE dropping him off at the base.
You will see that.
Vingegaard getting dropped off as well.
Big Rog as well.
And Roglic as well with a helmet on sideways. So I think that's a really good bit of theatre. And geez, that would be one stage. If you do live in that region, that would be one to go to, wouldn't it? It'd be very exciting to watch.
All 3 will be. And also on the second stage, they start down in Tarragona. It's kind of like the Mandra of Perth.
Okay.
I'll put it. I think that's the only way I can summarise that. And then they finish back in Barcelona on this circuit. So they come in, they do a few laps of this circuit, then they're using Catalunya again. Really exciting racing, really punchy. There'll be a lot of stress as well on that stage 2 with that finale. And it looks like in stage 3 they start out in Granollers, which is just out near Girona. So a little bit, maybe an hour and a half out of Barcelona. So all these stages are really accessible. So if you're thinking of going and watching a start of the Tour de France, this would be it. It's the 3rd time that it's been in Spain. Obviously, we saw the start in Bilbao a couple of years ago, and I think the last time was San Sebastian in the 90s, maybe 92.
You know what, mate? There's actually a very good chance that we could go to this.
You reckon?
Yeah,
actually, genuine?
Genuinely, there's a good chance that we can go to this.
Don't you pump my tyres
No,
up.
For real. Honestly, we could make this work. We definitely could. We'll have to work on that off air. But one thing I'm interested in is this, usually with teams' time trials, all teams can get together, ride with this, your 8 riders on a flat circuit, and you can nudge 53, 54k an hour, post a nice time. They're all very good at swapping off. But the art of a team's time trial, you really get to see this when the circuit is full of corners or it's full of hills, because there's a lot more to think about with regards to pacing and climbing and descending as well. Because if you're riding a downhill into a climb, there's a little art of slingshotting your riders.
Precisely.
And slingshotting the riders through, and it's you can ride a very smooth race if you know how to do that, and not all of them do. So we may see some huge gaps in there.
Now, do you remember the last time they had a team time trial? In Barcelona, it was the one. It was where they finished in
crash?
it was in the dark.
Water?
It finished under darkness. Do you remember Remco was there? Quick Step, they went off. It was the start of the Vuelta, I believe, and this was only a handful of years ago. And they started classic Spaniards, classic Catalans. They started too late. The last riders, Quick Step, they were going off. It was pitch black. They were all taking the visors off the helmet. It was pissing down rain. You can get these big fronts that roll through out of nowhere off the Med. Really windy corner of the world just above Barcelona. They've just had the America's Cup there, so there's a bit of wind. You get these big storms that can roll in.
No.
Yeah, so it was tumultuous times. So some of the riders, I think, they've raised an eyebrow and gone, we're going to start finish before the sun is down this time.
Absolutely.
So that is huge news, and I'm really excited to see that start, that grand depart.
What about the spectacle? Because usually the first stage of the Tour de France is, you really look forward to it. It's a hectic sprint stage, and there's a lot going on. There's usually crashes because everyone's very edgy. What do you think the viewership will be like? Will you guys be watching the team's time trial at the start of the Tour de France? Let us know in the comments. Will you watch a team's time trial? Will you watch the whole stage? Will you tune in to watch maybe just your favourite team or rider, or see the GC riders? I, for one, will watch it, and I really look forward to the tech that's posted the next day of the bikes.
Yeah, and I love seeing the preparation because it's almost just like a team time trial to the bottom, and then it's unleash your GC rider. But there's going to be teams that are going to try and win the yellow jersey. There's going to be teams that will specifically target this first stage, say the sprint teams. Think of Trek. They've got those big units in there for Milan. They could arrive at the bottom of the Montjuic little lump with maybe 20 seconds ahead of Jumbo or UAE. So they're someone who could just, and they won the Triple T down in Valencia. They obviously know what they're doing. So I love this because you could see someone win this stage, and not only just win the stage of the Tour de France, but win the yellow jersey.
Wow, there's so many things. That's very
really
good.
Special.
We should also see a lot of the races announce their lineups, their parcours for 2026. Some of the smaller races that preluded, and I'm sure we'll see a few teams' time trials scattered in there because teams are going to want to go to these races to prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to lure in the teams to those smaller races.
Now, speaking of smaller races, the Gravel World Championships for this year, scheduled to be in October, of course. By the way, the 2026 Gravel Worlds will be in Nannup in Western Australia, our hometown, the home of gravel. But this year's was scheduled for Nice in France, and it's been cancelled. They're looking for another venue, Tommy, but Nice has been cancelled, and they said the organisers decided...
It was mutual, huh?
Yeah, it was mutual. I think they just agreed it was way too hard with permits, with road closures, to get this done in a town or in a city like Nice. Not my first choice of gravel locations, to be fair. So that's an interesting one, and I mean, geez, now you've got them looking for a Gravel World Championship circuit and a Road World circuit, if you believe the no plan B for the
events committee at UCI. I think they're going to be a little bit under the pump over the next few months, won't they?
You know what's interesting about the Gravel World Championships is the UCI qualifiers that are all around the world. I think there's 30 of them, Tom. The event organisers who have those, you need to pay a fee to the UCI to be a UCI qualifier.
Yep.
You would think that fee is the same for all events?
What? It's not. It varies.
It varies.
How does it vary, and what variables?
The president of this whole organisation told me that himself.
What variables does it vary?
Well, for example, let's say a UCI World Gravel Series qualifier that starts in Rwanda, and there's a few in some interesting countries, like smaller nations. So there's a few African ones, and there's just some smaller setups versus some big ones. There's a big one in Swiss, obviously 7 is a huge one, etc. The ones who maybe don't have as many resources will get charged a lesser fee.
So you're telling me that they look at the budget of the events and then they sort of scale it to that. That is interesting.
It's a money grab. It is a money grab. You don't need 30 UCI World Series qualifiers. Don't get me wrong, it's great and gravel is improving, but I'm just saying that...
Has it lost its soul, gravel, Jethro?
No,
you're a gravel man. Has it lost its soul? Has it been diluted with the money?
No, it hasn't. It's still good. I hope they do find a course for that, but let's watch this space because I wouldn't be surprised if they combine the location for the road and gravel worlds now that they're looking for 2 venues.
Look, just have it down at Nannup this year. I'm sure the team down there, they'll be able to sort it out.
Oh, geez,
I reckon they could do it. They could do it. If there's anyone I know, they could do it.
Now, this next one is very interesting, Tommy. It just came across my desk, just sort of was posted to me. Female pro triathlete is in the news recently because she was suspended for doping provisionally. Now, her name is Imogen Simmons, and she finished 4th at the Ironman World Championships in Chalpo last year, or late last year. So she's obviously a very, very good triathlete. She's been banned provisionally for testing positive for Ligandrol, which is like it's something that improves lean body mass lean muscle mass, and it's on the WADA ban list. She's denied that she is positive for this and that she's used that drug, and she's posted on her own Instagram, which I thought was really interesting. I want to see if it passes the pub test with you, right? Because we've heard the clenbuterol excuse thanks to Contador. He was banning the
dodgy meat.
The dodgy meat. He was blaming that meat that he ate in Spain. We've heard the steroid creams, Yannick Singer, that he was being rubbed on his legs. The protein powders were being, they were contaminated. We've heard all about that for how the substances get into these athletes' bodies. But this one is one I haven't heard before. So upon receiving the news, this is in her Instagram post, and you can go and read this, yada yada. Upon receiving the news, I immediately hired an experienced counsel. Through investigation and research, it was discovered that, unknown to me, she didn't know my long-time partner has been ingesting Ligandrol to help improve his own personal physique around the time of the positive test. Very convenient. And then, considering the timeline of events, specifically that I had a negative doping control test 6 days earlier, and then my partner and I engaged in intimate relations, both on the day of and the day before her doping control test, give me a spell, my legal team have concluded that this substance got into my system via the transfer of bodily fluid. It's a big stretch. When you just does it past the pub test. I didn't know my partner was using this to improve his body physique. We also had sex on the day of and before I got tested.
Well, it certainly makes for a pretty open discussion at the legal table, doesn't it? What you were up to at around that time. Almost, to be honest, I actually think it's a stronger defence than someone like Contador, who would be earning €4 million a year saying, I bought dodgy meat. Mm-hmm. So in the grand scheme of things, look, it's a different angle. I don't mind it in terms of a defence. It could be legit. I think it flirts with the pub test.
They also cite it was the amount that was in her system. It was very low, I'll bet this. And it was equivalent to a dash of salt in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's the same line that John Jones used when he was banned for some steroid use in the UFC. That line has been strung out a few times. So, look, it's just an interesting one. The first time I heard that excuse, and I wonder what you guys think. Do you trust this theory? There's a lot of stuff going on in there, and I don't know. Tell
if you've heard a better doping excuse, let us know. Yeah. Let us know. I love the Contador one. I love the Sinner one. It's just slide through. Let us know.
If I was tested, I would be just jam-packed full of steroids, mate. When you look at me,
it's going to be you, mate, operating at Three Peaks this weekend.
Oh, I wouldn't mind a bit of that on the start line. Now, Ewan as well has been in the spotlight. He's done some more PR. Tommy Caleb Ewan, after we mentioned that perhaps
if you were a PR operator, you'd be grabbing him. Oh, you got to be in front of the TV, Ewan. Come
mate,
here.
He'd be doing Colgate commercials. It's up to me, mate. I'd get him in front of it. He'd be on your toothpaste all the time, smiling. You go, geez, Caleb, you must be a nice guy. Now, he was on Geraint Thomas's podcast. Really good episode. Listen to that one. But he said in that episode that he actually almost joined Team Sky. He was meant to join Team Sky back when he was a 17-year-old. And so much so that they gave him a power meter. They gave him a Pinarello bike to use. It actually was Richie Port's old bike at the time.
Be the same size, wouldn't
And they said, go away and do some training. We'll analyse your data. And then the next year we'll meet up. Because obviously he was very touted as he was already winning against adults as a 17-year-old, Caleb Ewan. And the year rolled by, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we're not going to sign you because we don't think you will improve with pro training." Because at the time, he was already training like a pro, and they didn't think his data would improve, which they were obviously wrong about. And I thought that was really, really interesting that they passed up on him at that time.
Yeah, it just shows that the talent scouting system is just forever changing that whole landscape. It's a really fascinating industry where, we're seeing so many juniors now, they're already training like a pro. And they're stepping in. Guys like Paul Magnier, who was, second at Omloop. He's 20 years old and he's contesting World Tour wins. So maybe Ineos, you probably count your winners, but I think it's a bit like gambling, isn't it?
There's definitely gambling.
You would, there's your losers as well. And what a pick-up Ewan would have been if they had grabbed him. And I think he would have fitted in pretty well at the Ineos sort of structure. When it was Sky, it was very clear-cut. They had their tour team.
Yeah.
And as a youngster going through that, I think he would have had a good opportunity. But look, he's wound up there.
He's wound there now. Isn't he? You're right. It is a bit of a lottery. Sometimes you end up with a K's bowl. But Ewan is back at Copa Bartley. That's going to be his first race.
When's that?
It's the end of the month, end of March. 4-day stage race, 1 sprint in there. And, the way Ewan was talking about it, it's just a bit of a tester. Don't expect him to be firing at that race. But one thing he did say that he's been training on is that he's been training for his sprint. He neglected his sprint in the last 3 years of his training, thinking that he needed to improve his aerobic ability. But then by the time he was getting over to more finishes, but he was not being competitive. It's exactly the same thing that Mark Cavendish did. Cav, when he was trying to get back to his best, he started training for his aerobic base. And it was only when he went to Quick Step and he was with big Vasilis, the great Greek, who turned him around. He said, Cav, we don't care if you don't get to as many finishes. The ones you do get to, you'll suffer for to get. But when you do arrive at the finale, you will be able to sprint like you always could. So that's a good sign for me for Ewan, and something that in my mind gives me even more confidence that he actually will win a couple of good races this year.
Going to be fascinating to see who they build a little lead out around with him. I'm really intrigued to see how they do that. I'm really interested to see how that he's going to go in there, gel. And because obviously, they would have had the team camp and there would have been riders in there who would have gone, okay, I've got this race as an opportunity. Then all of a sudden, there's this late signing of Ewan, who now they go, oh, Ewan, we're actually going to send you to Bartley, but old mate was going to actually have that. You're going to have co-leadership with someone else.
Well, now,
it's
interesting
that aspect in my opinion.
A lot of races last year, Ineos went to without any sprinters. So it's going to give them more ammunition to go for their teammates, the workers, the domestiques. They're going to have more motivation because now they've got maybe a sprinter who could contest. So that's really one to watch. And I know we're going on about Caleb Ewan, and one of the reasons why is that I just think it's interesting that one rider who was the world's best sprinter for probably 2 years, probably 2014, 2016, he had a big lull period for no reason, a few crashes and lots of personal stuff. But now he's got an ability to come back, and I just think it's an interesting story to watch because it's unfolding right before us. Now, Tour of Rwanda,
yes.
Tommy.
Oh, this is a bit of bad news, isn't it?
It's a bit of bad news before we get to the good news of the race, the good news story, but they cancelled the final stage due to unforeseen weather conditions. Basically, it was raining. But for Rwanda roads, it's not much of a tarmac on all of the roads they're riding on. Some of it's like a turf road, and if it rains...
It gets muddy.
It gets like proper muddy. It doesn't need that much moisture, and it becomes unrideable. And the interesting story here is Fabien Dubé, the French rider who was in the yellow jersey, he was the one that actually did the policeman style and stopped the race. He sort of flapped his arms, Tony Martin style, and got everybody to stop. And, that led to the race stopping. And he copped a fine for it at the end.
Yeah, rightly so. You're the race leader. And
Blake thought Pogacar.
I don't know if you're the race leader on the final day on an uphill finish and you've only got 5 or so seconds in the lead, you can't be the bloke to do it. You've got to tap a few friends on the shoulders and say, can you take one for the team here? I'll get you a few bottles of red at the end of the week. But he's stood up and done it. And this surprised me.
Second on GC, the Eritrean Malabran, he still wanted to race. Obviously, he was 5 seconds back.
Henok is a competitive beast. Yeah. Henok Mulliban, he was riding for Eritrea. He rides for XDS Astana. He's won Tour of Qinghai. He's been brought into the team to go to races like this and win UCI points. He would be filthy. Yeah. Absolutely filthy.
And he was. There was some really good demonstrating between him and the riders and the DS afterwards. And when you think about it, a lot of the riders would be pretty happy to stop on that final day with an uphill finish. And they've just been in the bin for 6 stages. A lot of them probably didn't want to go up there, which is probably why they stopped. Not a good sign for Worlds either, Tommy.
It's not. UCI Worlds are going to be there in the tail end of the year. Don't know what the weather patterns are like in Rwanda. I'm not intimately familiar with the meteorology movements over there. But if you get one day of rain on, obviously this is a stage race where Worlds will be a bit of a point-to-point race and then into a circuit. So it'd be a little bit more controllable. So they could have some better tarmac there or something like that, or some better, drainage system. But if this does not set a good tone.
No, it doesn't look good, and I think that's another nail in the coffin. If the coffin's already in the dirt, as far as I'm concerned, with the Rwanda Worlds, it's not happening there.
You've written it off.
It's not happening there, but on a good standing here, mate.
Yeah.
The big man Brady Gilmore, 2 stage victories, one of them leading out his teammate. He should have had 4 stages. If he was able to sprint for the very first stage, he would have won that because he did the lead out, still finished 5th, only 1 bike length behind. Second stage, he's done the lead out for his teammate. His teammate could not come around. Third stage, he's nuked everyone and won. And then on the 4th stage, he was actually second. He kind of got jumped on the line on a downhill finish. He messed that up, and he said that himself. He had the legs. He just messed that up. He almost had 4 stage wins. He was the story of the race. He is from one of the most isolated cities in the world, Kalgoorlie, a gold mining town in Western Australia. And for him to be there, I think it's time for the Israel Premier Tech Academy to promote him up. Bring someone down from the main team.
I was going to say they'd have to bring someone down there. Their list is at capacity. And if they do need to bring someone down to do that, that's a hard conversation to have when it's already, spring. And
well, not if they're not scoring. If they're not scoring, it's not a hard conversation. If they're not performing, it's not a hard conversation. I click on, Israel Premier Tech. Here we go. I click on their team. Some of these riders on there, Jakob Fuselang, he hasn't done anything in years. He's 39 years old. Froome's obviously on the way out as well. There's riders on here that, Mathis Louvel, 25, hasn't done much at all. There's a lot of riders here that could be moved on and make room for, the great man, Brady Gilmore, because he deserves a shot. He's done exactly what he needed to do. Pumped a whole heap of Conti riders in a Conti race. That's what a World Tour rider does.
I want to see it done in Europe. I love him, and I think he's got a great attitude. He works as hard as a World Tour professional, one of the very elite operators. He's got to go and do it in Europe, and I reckon then it'll be signed, sealed, and delivered.
So you're looking for one more performance in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, look, and it won't. If he gets a performance and a result in Europe, that won't just ensure that he might step up to the World Tour team at Israel. That'll open avenues to having conversations with other teams as well. And I think that could be great for him.
This is Roadside, presented by Zwift. So Strade Bianche, Tommy, one of my favourite races on the calendar, the men's and women's, is on this Saturday, the 8th of March. The men's race is 213 kilometres, 2,500 metres of climbing. It's a lot more punchy than it reads, and there are 16 Strade Bianche sectors, a lot of them coming in the back end, around 10 in the last 60 kilometres. Pog is back. Pogacar from UAE Team Emirates. He is back, the reigning 2-time champion. Last year, he won by 50-kilometre solo. And
50 Ks.
It was impressive, but also the spectacle, if that was to happen again, we probably wouldn't be too pleased with that. And in the women's, 135K, 2,100 metres, 13 sectors. Kopecky, again, like Pogacar, 2-time winner. They've won it on the same years, 2024, 2022. We've got to pick our winners, Tommy. But first, Strade, are you a fan? You must be.
I'm a huge fan of Strade. I've loved it ever since the years when we saw Fabian Cancellara win it. We've seen a variety of winners, and the race has really grown over the last couple of years. It's become harder. I just remember that year that Tish Benoot won.
Oh, in
the
bucketing
wet. Down rain.
Wout
it was
Van Aert
filthy, cold. Yeah, Van Aert did it, and then that was kind of like Van Aert stepping out into the road scene. He cramped on the final kicker up into the city. Mm-hmm. I've actually saw that kicker.
What do you mean?
So that little run in when I've been in the city.
Really?
Yeah, I went and I was there with a few other friends just quickly, and then I said, "Hey, look, guys, we're at Piazza del Campo in the middle," and I said, I've just got to have a look at this road. And they looked at me and they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I just got to look at this hill. And then they were like, "Is this cycling related?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then my partner was like, "You just want to go look at a road, road up a hill." And I was like, "It's a nice road."
You want to see gauge the steepness, right?
I wanted to gauge it all, and I've got genuinely narrow. It is steep. How they ride it when it's obviously, they've been going full gas all day. It is steep, slippery road tiles there.
Yeah, like the tiles. It's
one of that corner, the two corners as they come into Piazza del Campo.
Yes.
I looked at that and I couldn't believe it. I thought, this is just insane. It's a race I want to go back and watch one day.
It's one of the best finishes in pro cycling. For me, it's one of the best finishes in the world. It just all builds. You usually get 2 or 3 riders together. We've seen so many instances for the women's. For the men's, we get 1, 2, 3, 4 going head to head. I can remember... we've had Kopecky and Vollering going head to head.
Who was the third rider that they went there with?
Annemiek van Vleuten.
Christian Falklands, I believe.
Kristen Falkland. Yeah, she was in a breakaway when the horse came out as well. She was in the breakaway. We've seen Van der Poel launch. We've seen Alaphilippe go on that sector. We've seen Sagan, Kwiatkowski, Greg Van Avermaet go punting all the way up there. So really, it's just such a theatre. And then you finish in the square. I mean, the square is just beautiful in there. It's
gorgeous.
It's a coliseum for cycling. So very interested to see how this goes. I am a little bit worried on the men's side, Tommy.
You're worried that it's going to be a dull affair with Pogačar on the start of this, aren't you?
He looks so much better than everyone else. He didn't look this much better on the one-day scene when he won last year. He won by 50 kilometres on his own, and 3.5, 4 minutes I think he won by. He's coming in very hot.
He's coming in really hot again this year. He's going to put everybody away, and he's got good support. Florian Vimish, he's on the list already. Yep. He's a hitter. He'll go there with the Classics ensemble that will back him up. Without crash or without any sort of issue of mechanical, it's hard to pass Pogačar as a winner, isn't it? Realistically.
I like Tom Pidcock as a one to watch for the best of the rest. He obviously won in 2023.
Do you think he can challenge?
I don't think he can challenge Pogačar. There's no way. But I think best of the rest will be Tom Pidcock. And sometimes you see some other riders pop up and actually perform quite well when we get these dynamics. When there's one rider out front dominating, and then the rest, some of the big favourites blow up trying to chase, and then some of the other riders can come and sneak on the podium.
Well, because of the chaotic nature of Strada, you do get these lulls in between the gravel sectors. And I actually think because the dominance of Pogačar, every team will actually go, I'm getting ahead of the race this year. And we saw it in the last Monument of the Year, last year in Lombardia. Yeah. They all tried to get ahead of Pogačar. And there was a group of around 20 or so that had big names like Eddie Dunbar and stuff who just won a stage at the Vuelta. And they were driving this break and they all thought we need at least 5 minutes before the Pello started.
Great
and
call.
UAE chased all day. And I just think Pogačar, yes, he's super strong. There will come a time when the break could just be selected and there could be just 30 riders scrambling in a break, 30, 20 riders at the front of the race in the first 30, 40 kilometres.
Yes.
And Pog could just be there and he's like, I can't police this by myself. I need help. So is his team going to be up to that challenge to be able to police a breakaway? Because I tell you what, it's not going to fall to anybody else.
Mate, fantastic call. That is a one you must watch. Now, I did do the double check. SBS are showing Strade Bianche. They are. I said it for Omloop. They were not. But I think that's a great call. You've got to tune in for the first kilometres of this race. It's going to be amazing because I think you're exactly right. There will be riders looking to get ahead of the race. In the women's...
hold up. You going Pog?
I'm going to go Pogačar to win easily. And
Give me a rogue one.
Not even the full start lists are there, but just looking at this,
give me a rogue.
I'm going to say, looking down here, I'm going to say a rogue one. I think Joseph Blackmore will be in the top 10.
Okay, don't
from
mind
Israel
that.
Premier Tech. Fuglsang won't be, though.
I'm going to Mark Hershey.
Oh, I love the Tudor man. I love it. And he'll be taking it seriously because obviously Fabian, the great man, is a 3-time winner, I think, of memory.
Yeah, he's right up there.
Strade Bianche. Yep. When you win it 3 times, you get a sector named after you.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. So I believe Pog's won it twice. Kwiatkowski's won it twice. Kenshira's won it 3 times. So there's a few riders there on staring down the barrel of a little sector named after them. Your pick, you think Pog's going to win too?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay. And what about in the women's? The women's has been probably the best edition of Strade Bianche of the men's and women's. If you compare them race-wise, probably for the last, I would say, 3-4 years. It's been really, really exciting. Kopecky won last year. She also won in 2023. My pick, mate, I think Park Peterson wins this one.
Yeah, she's got that gravel background, doesn't she, as well? She's the cyclocross background. She knows how to ride the Strada. She's such an all-round rider. Mm-hmm. And she was strong. She looked pretty solid in opening weekend, didn't she?
She did, yeah. I think she was 4th on Omloop in the women's, and she was pretty decent, I think, back in her first attempt last year. She was 13th, not too bad. I think the year before that, she was even higher in 5th place in 2022, and Kopecky won. No, that was her first attempt last year. So Peterson, for mine, is going to be the one who gets the job done. I'm going to bank on a bit of bullshit from SD Works and FDJ.
Bullshit, I
think we'll see it a little bit, and Puck Peterson will be able to slip away and get the win. What do you think, mate?
To be honest, mate, I've got absolutely no idea after the weekend that I've had, mate. Absolutely none. I'll pull a hat out of the bag.
Can't go wrong with Vollering.
I'll go with Vollering, safe as houses.
Interesting one to watch is let's see how Vanna Breggen rides, because she had a really good ride at the race on. It's a good question, actually.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that. Question without notice.
She would have won it. I reckon she would have won it the first edition. I reckon she would have won the first edition. Let me just check the history here.
She's the sort of rider who would love to, okay.
She won back in 2018 ahead of Borghini and Niwa Domafini. So look out for Anna Vanna Breggen. She's not in her top form just yet. She's just simmering from what I've noticed so far in our opening weekend.
Yeah, she certainly is. She's putting one foot in front of the other. It's like she has not had any time off at all. It's scary, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. So make sure you tune in. SBS will be watching, or Tiz Cycling, or any of your European watchers. You can, however you watch it on there, TNT Sports. Who do you think's going to win? Who are your picks? We had a few picks in the comments last episode for Omloop and Kerner. Don't think anyone was right, so you guys need a lift. So who do you think for Strade? Will Pog win the men's? Is it a foregone conclusion that he wins? And what about in the women's? There's plenty who can win in that.
Yeah, no, there certainly are. And following Strade, we're straight into Paris-Nice and then Tirreno Adriatico. So two big week-long stage races coming up. Season's well and truly kicking into gear once more with the European stage racing. A quick question without notice as well, are you? Should Strade be a monument? Every year this bullshit rolls around. Do you think it should be a monument?
I think it should. Take out Il Lombardia. Take out, what's the other one? The other big one, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I've had enough of those two. If it was up to me, take them out. I reckon you've got to perform as a race to be as a monument. You can't just have, they're not change. You've got to be dynamic. Strade Bianche, I think, is the new age monument, and I would replace Lombardia with Strade Bianche.
Oh, I completely disagree with you. Lombardia is one of the best monuments. The Race of the Falling Leaves, it is glorious. It's the Climbers Monument. We've got the pavé. We've got the punches in there as well, this gravel. I like Strade. I love it. I absolutely love it, but I don't think it's a monument just yet.
I think all the monuments should be at the start of the year. I think Il Lombardia and Liège, they're a bit, especially Lombardia is the last one, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's too far away. It needs to be at the start of the year. Everyone forgets about it.
Well, let's sign you up to One Cycling's Racing Committee, mate, advisory board, and let's get you on there and you can make a few big calls with Roger Pluge.
There's only one position I could sit on One Cycling, director. So what do you guys think? Strade Bianche, should it be a monument? That's a big, big question. And do you even like it? Maybe everyone hates it. I don't think so.
No, I absolutely love it.
We love the Graveler. Thanks for listening, everyone. That was Roadside presented by Zwift. We're going to be back in another fortnight. We actually will probably preview Milano-San Remo because that's coming up 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Wow. First monument of the year. Bring it on.
Looking forward to it.